Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I am thrilled to have Katie Chapmon here with us on the show. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All the way from LA, California, which is Thursday, Friday here. You're in the PM, I'm in AM. But I think we've got good times. We've got good times of the day for both of us. So energy
Yeah.
levels are, yours probably winding down, and mine is starting to wind up. So it's a nice flow. But I want to just quickly talk a little bit about you or celebrate a bit about you, and then we'll talk about your journey. But you are an award-winning registered dietitian and nutritionist that specializes in bariatric nutrition, gastrointestinal GI health, and hormonal balance. You've had over 14 years of clinical experience and served in pivotal roles, which includes bariatric, I'm getting good at that word, nutrition, which led
I
to
know.
Kaiser Permanent Southern California, where you established nutrition guidelines for healthcare practitioners. But you're now the founder of Katie Chapmon Nutrition, and it's a virtual practice dedicated to helping individuals navigate complex health challenges. And that's through a whole person approach. So we were just talking before, and I'll let you explain it, but that whole East and Western, and how do you integrate the two? So less of a traditional approach, but more of a integrated, or let's call it New World Order approach. Your services
Yeah.
encompass improving digestive health, hormonal balance, and overall well-being. But in addition to that, like, you just keep going. You have in addition to your clinical work, you've launched Bariatric Nutrition Pro, which is an education platform providing healthcare professionals with resources and courses to enhance their practice in the bariatric nutrition. How do you do it all? How did you go from being in the corporate or the, healthcare, space, and then to starting your own business? Like, give us a bit
Oh,
about your journey, and, I'm sure there's some sort
goodness.
of love or connection to nutrition that brought you into this space.
Yeah. No, I feel like my journey is actually not like straightforward or linear at
That's
all.
cool.
Um, which is, I don't know. I feel like I'm probably not alone in that.
Mm.
But nutrition and dietetics is actually kind of like a little bit of a second career for me. I started out in years of doing like corporate like training and like workflow for like medical offices. So like trying to figure out like their best patient care. And I did that for years. And then was like, huh, I think, there's something more. And nutrition interested me. I used to run marathons back in the day, not anymore, but
The
back in the
full,
day.
the full
And I,
marathon. You used to run the
yeah,
full. Oh my gosh, I've done half
yeah.
marathons, and I'm like, I don't know how you could do a full. Like, whoa, that's amazing.
They're they're crazy. Like that's always like back in the day. Like I feel like I'm more low key now. But I noticed how much my nutrition and like how I ate affected how I felt and how I ran. And I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, let me look more into this. And then decided to go back to graduate school, get a master's in nutritional science, and become a dietitian. So that's kind of like the first part of like how did I become a dietitian, which was just a little on a whim. And then I was in the corporate world for a good 10 or 11 years. And so it was a great kind of place for me to land after I graduated and sat for my board exam and kind of started out. And then I just kind of got to the point where I was like, gosh, within this structure, I've done everything I've wanted to do. Like, I've gotten to create clinical guidelines, I've gotten to work with all these people, I've gotten to educate, I've gotten to geek out on things, which I really love to geek out on things. And so, in that decision, which was a big decision, I was like, I want to go a bit further in how I practice, kind of start combining that like whole person or
Mm.
modern or integrative health so I can kind of combine more things and really look at someone and their health in just a whole person versus like piecemealed.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, okay, I think I can really do this in terms of just, what would be my next step? And I was like, I want to kind of practice and work with people in this really other way. And so I made that leap into starting my practice. And that was interesting because I started it like right before COVID. So that was a whole
Oh my
roller coaster
gosh. That what was,
of
is that
trying to
what,
figure that out.
yeah, but is that what got you into the virtual practice? Like, yeah, anyway, I've got lots of questions. I'll let you keep going.
I started virtual. No, it's okay. Like I started virtual actually before COVID and then just continued.
I see you
And
ahead of
it
the
was
game.
that right, like it was kind of an easy switch for me. Because especially in Los Angeles, we have all this traffic, so that
Yes.
makes it hard, and I wanted my reach to be further. And then when I did recognize that a lot of times people would be like, oh, I'm taking this supplement, or oh, I picked up this thing. And if you're in an office space, you're like, oh, and you're like, what is that thing? And you're trying to Google and trying to get information. Whereas if someone's at home, I'm like, oh yeah, go grab that thing because I
Oh
actually really want to
yeah. I had
know.
not, yeah, like the times when I'd taken all my new like vitamins or whatever into see my doctor,
Uh-huh.
and it's in the bag, like
Yeah.
you carry it all with you.
Yeah.
Or I'm taking photos
Yeah.
like of like what I'm taking,
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Right. And so that was kind of this decision for virtual and then went straight into COVID. And then now I'm just kind of like expanding and growing. I have another dietitian with me. I'm going to bring on some others. And just for us to really focus on this need, which is that primary niche of kind of gut health and hormone health. And then I can't forget my background in bariatric surgery and all of that stuff too. So I don't know. I hope I covered a
you
lot of
did,
it.
you did. Can you explain to me exactly what bariatric
Yeah.
is? Like, what is it like? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So bariatric or metabolic surgery, that is any of like what people would think of like a weight loss surgery.
Ah,
So it encompasses any of those. And so within that kind of background and that space, like you change anatomy or change how digestion works. So,
yeah, right.
along with that, there's a lot of things that you have to think about, whether that's nutritionally or vitamin and mineral or gut health, because digestive tract had a surgery on. So, it might change how that gut health
Yeah,
is. And
okay.
so, so that's kind of the little bit of what that is, or that
Okay.
piece of
Yeah,
it.
cool. That
Yeah.
makes sense. And so many different
Yeah.
questions. It's sort of the sort of individuals, who do you work with? Like, do you work with women, predominantly women, men? Like, are they high stress? What's your clientele like?
Yeah. So primarily, like work both men, women. I could say primarily we tend to see more women just because they're like, oh, I'm really feeling something with my hormones, or I'm really much more comfortable with talking about my gut health, which is not always like a comfortable, like some of those questions get really like nitty gritty and kind
Yeah.
of being like, we're going to be best friends because I got to ask these questions to help me help you better.
Yeah.
And so primarily like it tends to lean more towards female. And then as far as like what we see, I'll be honest that like I can kind of walk through like, other practitioners will be like, hey, what diagnosis do you see? And I'll be like, oh, this is diagnosis. But most often we see people that are like, oh my gosh, I am really constipated or really bloated. Like I don't have like everything looks normal, or my hormones are like I feel off and everything looks normal, but I don't feel good. Or I
Well,
don't
something's not
feel
right.
like all right. Exactly. And so that's where kind of you get to be much more like in tune of like, okay, let's put all the pieces together of why you're not feeling your best. So that way we can start addressing all those different connections to be able to feel a lot better and have a great
Yeah.
quality of life. That's the
Yeah.
whole goal.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like I get it because at times I'm like, I just feel disconnected. Like, I'll say to
Yeah.
my doctor, I just don't feel right. And then he'll just break it all down because he's integrated and holistic. And I'll be
Yeah.
like, and he'll just like try and chunk it all down because you just know. And so
Hmm.
you're like, what you're talking about is just getting all the
Yeah.
pieces and putting all the
Yeah.
pieces back together to interconnect it, if you like, in a more holistic, well,
Yeah.
whole being way, so that you can, like I call it shining your brightest, so you can be your best or feel your best.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Absolutely.
fascinating. Do you get a lot of do you see a lot of people coming to you who are like, is stress a big factor? Like I think about corporate world and I think about like, you've been in it, especially in the health
Yeah.
sector, like, and there's that much
Yeah.
burnout and all of that. And even myself, right? Like
Mhm.
over the years, just working, I guess like a maniac at some points, like the
Yeah.
stress and it was always my God. It was always something to do with me physically that was playing up, or
Hmm.
like without getting
Hmm.
into all the detail of it. But you know what I mean? Like and so
Absolutely.
so do you see a lot of that, like in terms of people coming to you, like you say, with one something wrong, and are you able? So do you see a lot of those sorts of people? But then as soon as you see them, do you have almost like this superpower where you can pretty much when you're zooming or whatever with them, can you pick up pretty quickly just by looking at them where you can see some disconnection straight away?
Yeah, you can. I mean, one, I would be like, yes, it's a huge, huge factor because the stress part of the situation, like, is so far reaching. And
Yeah.
if we think about it and really, really like just basic thought about our body, like, bodies are like meant to be like, hey, let's process, let's run, let's do this. And if there's that stress was always meant to be very temporary for people.
Mm.
Like, oh my gosh, okay, we need to go and we need to chase after this thing, or this thing's chasing after us. Like, if you think very cave
Yeah.
person, like, that was supposed to be what stress was. And it does all these things. Like, it's like, okay, we don't want to be super hungry because if you're being chased by something, we don't want digestion to happen, and it starts like it signals to all these other
Gosh,
processes
yeah.
like hold, hang tight. Okay. Right. Like, because our goal right now is to run away from this thing. And that is what our body's goal is.
Yeah.
So if that's what it was designed for, so then if you go and you're like, oh, okay, now where we sit, where it's like that constant churning and things like that, our body signals there's no on off switch with that. Like all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to hold up on this. We're going to hold up on this. And so, magically, I always think our bodies really intelligently are like, yeah, okay, something important is over here. So we're going to hold up on here. But if that's constant, then, oh, your processes are that communication is going to be a
All
really
over the
bad
shop.
game of telephone.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what that is. So I think that when I look at this, I'm kind of like, okay, right? We need, I can from talking to someone or even kind of sometimes there's physicality things you can see, but typically like when I start walking through just talking about someone's day or just kind of being like, okay, how does this look like even in terms of food? Like if I'm like not even being like, let me into your life, but let's just like walk through what happens during your day in terms of how you eat and how that shows up. It can be very telling just of how much of a rush or imbalance or, things that come up. And most people don't realize that stress is that like big key part of it. They just don't feel right.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's so interesting. Gosh, if I look back in my like most
Yeah.
out of control, like working state that I was in, like, and the stress I was under, like, and yeah, I was like 3 or 4 coffees a day. I probably would, I'd forget
Yep.
to eat. So I'd eat when, my EA or someone would be like, "B, have you eaten today?"
Right.
Like, what? Like, because I'd be too, like, it was really bad. Like, it was just, but then I, and then it was eating like a,
Absolutely.
like a, like a, like a cookie or a muffin, something like, because I wanted sugar to keep me
Yeah.
going. Like,
Quick energy.
quick,
Yeah.
quick
Like that
energy.
quick energy.
Quick energy, yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
really interesting that
Yeah.
and do you work with, like, so do you work with children as well, or is it's generally adults? Like, what are you seeing as probably,
Absolutely.
oh, sorry, you go.
Hmm. No, 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 no. I was going to say for children, absolutely. Can see children for what we're doing. It tends to not be like as prominent.
Yeah, yeah,
But I definitely have seen children for gut health issues. I've seen children like as they're starting like menstruation and stuff like that, and that's not going, as like kindly for them, let's
yeah,
say.
yeah,
And they're like, oh, they're really symptomatic. And like, what do we do with that? And
yeah,
so absolutely like,
yeah,
yeah, it can be far reaching.
yeah. And do
Yeah.
you think that, like, gut health is, I mean, it's like the second brain, isn't it, right? Like, it's such an important part of who we are and and when you go back to this whole being person, like, if your gut's not functioning, you're like, everything's not really functioning. Like, I find it so fascinating that whenever I read about
Yeah.
use your second brain from a mood sense, everything, right? Like, like mental health and
Hmm.
all of that. Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
I just keep asking you questions, but I'm loving this
Okay.
conversation because
Fine.
it's fascinating. But the world we're living in, right? It's constant. It's like you say, it's like we go back to caveman days and now, and we're kind of constantly in this survival, I call it survival mode, where we're operating from this,
Yeah.
where our nervous system is up here and it's go, 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 it's 24/7. I read something fascinating the other night about what is flexibility at the moment, because given that we're in this new world order of work, like this, yes, we've got all this flexibility, but it's also then like we're working all the time sort of thing. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, isn't it? Like you have to like manage your flexibility.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is I use in the years of, being in nutrition and a dietitian, etc. Are you seeing that gut health is becoming more and more of a, I guess, are you seeing more of it? Like, are you kind of going, wow, like, are you seeing a lot more of it than you would have, say, 5 or 6 years ago? Like, are you seeing a trend in terms of the rapid change of the world we're in, everything that's going on, and even hormonal imbalance, right? Like, you look at women, like
Hmm.
menstruation back in the day versus now, and even like everything
Yeah.
about like menopause or perimenopause. Like, there's just a lot like out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, are you
Yeah. I
seeing a
think
lot more of that? Mm.
I'm seeing much more. And I think there's kind of parts to this, right? I think one, we are taking the time and learning more and more is becoming apparent. And we're learning more about those little bacteria in our gut and what they do and like how they communicate and all of these really powerful, fascinating things. Whereas when they were first discovered, it was like, oh, okay, this bacteria, and we're going to call it microbiome, and they help break down and digest your food and they move it along. That was what it was thought. And now
I
it's
see.
like, oh my gosh, that microbiome helps to break down and detoxify and package estrogen in someone's cycle. That microbiome makes over 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone. So
Yeah.
that's going to affect mood. Your microbiome starts to actually discuss with your neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. So, our kind of system that helps to I hate calling it like the reward system because it just gives that little bit of like, let's say maybe like motivation system or that little bit of like sparkle to it. Not always equals reward, but for sometimes it does.
Yeah.
So we're recognizing just all of this incredible power that happens within the gut and going, oh my goodness, this is so much more. Like there's certain bacteria that help to regulate blood sugar. And before we've always approached it from the pancreas. Well,
Mm-hmm.
okay. We actually also have a microbiome piece to it too. So truly fascinating just of how much we are getting to know about this, which is why and then we're talking about it. Same thing with hormones. Like we're talking about it much more now.
Yeah.
Whereas now people are like, huh, could that be me? Huh, I thought this was just quote unquote normal. And my gosh, I'm bloated all the time. Or man, at a certain time of the month, like I'm super sad or I'm super angry or whatever. And the more we're talking about it, the more people are going, huh, let me look into this a little bit more to see if this is something that could be assisted for me,
Yeah, because then
which is
when
great.
yeah, because when you think about and then when you think about that as an individual, but then you think about that as a collective, like if the
Yeah.
individual is not there feeling their whole self or performing, shining their brightest, feeling their best, because everything you're talking about here,
Yeah.
then as a
Yeah.
collective, like you can,
Yeah.
it's a domino effect, right? Like it's like like how are we?
Hmm.
So how do we make everyone like how do we get everyone to feel their whole self? Like this is what I'm finding so fascinating when it comes
Yeah.
to this the gut health piece. And it's almost like it's new world order what you're doing in terms of understanding it so
Yeah.
much more. And like everything you just reeled off then I'm like, man, that's all that like
No, right?
it's like you think your mind, you think your mind, it's like, but your mind's just your mind. Like there's just, and then there's this other piece down
Yeah.
here. And that's what I always think about.
Yeah.
You're like, especially like I'm gluten intolerant, but I'm severely gluten intolerant and being checked for celiac, but not. But I'm like,
Sure.
and I'm always like, there's something more. Like it's just because if I have an attack, it just, oh, I'm just completely, if my gut's
I'm
off,
sure.
I know that sounds kind of like just such a, I don't know,
No.
like guts off. It just sounds so like,
Yeah, I
and probably with an
know.
Aussie accent, you're probably going, wow, like it just sounds so like
No, but like this is what I do day in and day out. So I'm all like, yes, I'm agreeing with you. I was like, if your gut is off
you're
and whatever
off.
that looks like for you, you are just off.
Yeah.
Like things like you are not thinking as straight. Like your attention is split of like this is what I'm supposed to do at work or wherever or out. But like, man, over here, oh, this hurts, that hurts, I'm uncomfortable. Like, how do I manage that? I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And I just find the mental health piece so fascinating too, even in itself. Like when you talked about the serotonin piece, because like we're in a pandemic, we're in a like, well, not a pandemic, we're in an like
Yeah.
we're in a world where we're super lonely, like, and I'm going to ask you about your virtual practice as well in a
Hmm.
second, but I just
Sure.
remembered
Yeah.
that, you know, there's so much mental health going on that you almost kind of go, well, like think talking to you, it's almost like I wonder if gut health is going to become more and more prevalent in terms of looking into, well, hang on a second, is like, generally mental health a lot of the time is, what's going on psychologically. But then also for me, it's
Sure.
what's going on physiologically. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you look at
Yeah.
look at both? Like, because you're generally mental health, you're either
Yeah.
a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or you're having therapy, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
it's super fascinating to look at that from a whole being perspective. And I guess, you might be doing that in terms of because it's like seeing your dietitian or nutrition. Like, even my mum said to me a while ago, maybe you need to see a dietitian nutrition because I was just feeling like not myself, like, and knowing my gut
Yeah.
habits and stuff like that. And so I think there's something really interesting in that. Like, what's your view on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the physiological and the psychological.
Oh, so I mean, we can't like our body is so interconnected. Like I feel like I'm all like, it's just I can't talk about the one without the other. And I partner actually with therapists, psychologists,
Yeah.
psychiatrists, like all the time because And maybe the initial work might be like, oh, okay, we really need to get someone more stable and understand their brain pattern. And then that stability is there. And then it's like, okay, how can we do one step further to start to then also match up this other piece that's going to be more supportive for someone
Yeah.
too. So, I mean, it's ever prevalent. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What about the so it's coming back, like we just talked a little bit about loneliness,
Yeah.
mental health and all that. What about like, so virtual practice? Do you, going from the world you were in and working what you're working in, and obviously you're still doing
Mm.
lots of different things within the corporate
Yeah.
space. How do you find being on screens all day, every day, like from a virtual perspective? Like, do you like, yeah, how does that work for you?
So I break it up. Like I always tell people like I have like a schedule. Like I definitely like have there's like, certain hours where it's like I'm facing like this. And then I have like, okay, now you're gonna leave the house, you're gonna go hike, you're gonna go do something. And so that is how like and yes, the flexibility part, I get that. Like cool. That's it's lovely to have. But I found that that makes me so much more efficient,
Oh, I love
actually.
it.
And it also really helps me to regroup. So I'm not just constantly like, okay, here, okay, I'm on the screen. Here we go.
So
Like,
true.
like,
Like meeting after
oh,
meeting, right?
right. So like I might have this like really compelling like 3, 4 hours in a row, which is like, all right, and that is 3, 4 hours like this. And then I'm like, okay, switch gears. My mind needs a break from that. I need a break from the screen. I need to get out in nature. And so I mean, I schedule it in. Like if someone saw my schedule, you'd be like, oh, the little green boxes
Oh, I
are
love it.
her to
I'm the
go
same.
hiking
It's
or
colored.
exercise. 'Cause you got to, because if not, then you are going to burn. And especially being business owner, like doing all of that, like, because you do wear like all the
Every cat.
hats and then
I know.
right, all the hats. So that's why it's just like, oh, someone's like, oh, you saw clients today. And then I'm like, oh, but then these other hours was this. And then I also need to make sure I go outside. Because
Yeah.
if not, whew,
I know. That's like me
you'll burn
yesterday.
quickly.
It's so true. You've got great, like it's good. It's like I call it that life work flow piece. So you've got to have the micro breaks. You've got to step away. But like yesterday, for
Hmm.
example, I had all this admin as my, and
Sure.
owner as well of my business. And I was like, what did I do? I had a meeting at 7 a.m. and then I was literally walked my puppy, grabbed a coffee. He had a great time. He was all like, woohoo, mum, thank you. And then came back. I was like, right. And I sat him down and I had like a chat to him. He's like my chief energy officer. And I said, okay, mum's got to work now. You're just going to have to play by
Yeah.
yourself, sort of thing. And I swear it was like, oh, I think I got into such a flow state. Like I was like hours. And then I went, whoa. And like, I was just like, that's for me where I've got to be careful because I get into the dark side of the flow where I'm like, okay, I got to come out of this now. And
Hmm.
everything about me felt like I was because I'd been on the
Yeah.
computer the whole time. And that was when it like
Yeah.
was like, okay, step away. And I did that and I felt much better because it was just
Hmm.
like, as much as I was in the flow, I had to get out to then
Sure.
just to feel like I wasn't addicted to like stuck on this screen. I think it's so
Yeah.
important, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think also reflect like just respecting the flow and then also recognizing when you're not in the flow. Like I will admit that some days I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain, I am having the hardest time getting into this. And I'll be like, "Oh, okay, yep. Just honor that and go do something else that might be for your business or might be for yourself. So then that way, like tomorrow, you might be like, do.
Yeah.
And then you're in it. And then you're like, okay, yeah, here I'm in it. I'm here. But you're right, you gotta have a certain amount of hours that you're allowed to be in it.
Video stuff. And I really
So
like
it
that.
doesn't
Yeah.
go.
100%. I love that you talk about respecting it. I think you do. You have to respect the
Yeah,
days when you're on and you have to respect the days when you're off. I found that really hard. Like initially I was just like, oh,
I
like
do too.
I'm just going to force myself through this. But it equates
Yeah,
to stress, gut health, like all of the things. Like, for me, like the minute I just forced and pushed myself through, then my whole body, like I then
yeah,
start, I know, like I would immediately get issues with my gut or whatever. It was really interesting the way
yeah,
the two kind of interact and
yeah,
like, oh, okay. Like I said to you, I've woken up with a headache this morning and I'm like, what's this headache about? But I'm like,
yeah,
what did I do yesterday? And then I was like, yeah, I had heaps of screen time yesterday, heaps. Like I said, I got it, but
yeah,
and it was just like, so yeah, I think you have to like be aware of what's triggered or what's
yeah,
this, and so being able to be okay
yeah.
with having some downtime. What do you? I'm conscious of your time, but
Yeah.
what do you think is the biggest opportunity when it comes to, I guess, like, what am I trying to ask here? It's about nutrition and wholeness. What are you seeing as the biggest
Hmm.
opportunities right now in this space that you're in, like in terms of, because, like there's always been that dietitian, nutrition, like it's kind of like what are you seeing as the biggest opportunity right now in what you're doing and how that you can, um, I've got the question, it's just not coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
How you can like better people, support the individuals. Like what are you seeing as like the biggest opportunities right now? Does that make
I
sense?
mean, I think, and I'm going, I think you're asking me, and I was like, I think you're asking me, like, what is the biggest opportunity for someone,
Yes.
like, what is the biggest opportunity for someone to like help themselves
Yes,
within
that's
this
exactly
space?
right.
Is that
Yep.
okay? So, I mean, I think that I think one is like really get in tune. So like because I will tell anyone, I'll be like, you know your body better than anyone else. And I think we oftentimes even, it gets frustrating, but we'll be like, oh, okay, well, hey, I went in and I got things checked and everything's normal. And then people will be like, oh, okay, I guess this is normal. But be in tune. If it doesn't feel right, like if you're like, oh, okay, this feels really off, maybe, and I'm always like, great, those tests confirm maybe something major isn't happening. But if you're still feeling off, then there's other practitioners to look at it a couple different ways,
Yeah.
which really might be needed.
Yeah.
So I always tell people like, get in tune. And if you're and really honor that you know your body the best out of anyone.
Yeah.
And there's other avenues to take a look at if for some reason something just doesn't feel right.
Mm.
Did I answer that? Is
Yeah,
that
you
kind of
did. You
where
did. It
you
was
were
more,
wondering?
yeah, because it's more how do you
Yeah.
not normalize, but like, generally people are like, oh, all the like I've generally always thought, you see a nutrition or you see a dietitian if there's something seriously wrong or you need to sort out.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about here is,
That
and this is what
no.
I guess what I was trying to get at with my question. So thank you for answering the question that was like, it wasn't kind of coming out the way I wanted to. But basically what you're
Yeah.
saying is if you don't feel right, don't just think that that's okay. Like a dietitian or a nutrition, like a dietitian
Absolutely.
nutrition can look
Hmm.
at it from a whole place. And, there's generally something that yeah, it's your body is super intuitive, is what you're saying. And so listen to it,
Yes.
don't disregard it. And I think you're right. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's what we need to do more of. We need to normalize more of the fact that if you're not feeling right, don't just put up with it and think that's normal.
Hmm.
Same with when it comes to stress. When you're stressed, you know you're stressed. And so understanding
Hmm.
what's happening to my body or like what's going on here to then be able to go, all right, I need to sort this out. Because I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
if you don't, then there's like repercussions as like if do you know what I mean? There's more chronic things that can.
It's a domino.
It's absolutely a domino, absolutely a domino.
Yeah.
And then next,
Yeah.
and then one other question for you is, as an entrepreneur, what would you say is what do you love the most about being an entrepreneur, but what do you find the most challenging?
Oh, great question. So, I mean, I do love that I'm like, oh, I built my schedule so I can hike and that and it took me a while to like not just be like, you need to be at your computer from 9 to 5 because that's what you did at the corporate world forever, you know? And to really go like, oh yeah, like there are certain times where I am like I am a morning person. So like you catch me in the morning and I'm like, woo, and like all the stuff and later in the day, I'm not as like I still got it, but I'm like, oh, not as sharp, and just I love that I'm able to do that. Um, and the other thing, I'm a two-part answer. So the other thing is actually like I'm really enjoying the fact that I am bringing more people on the team and that I get to kind of like teach people and like
Yeah,
start to like, because not everyone is like specialized in this. So like that's also been kind of fun too in that like mentorship kind of way
love
as
that.
well to be able to go like, oh, okay, like this is what this cool thing is and let's talk through it. So
That's
that's
cool.
what I like. Um, the thing that I would say challenging is that it is only you. So a lot of times when you're like, oh my gosh, I just need someone else to talk through this like
Situation.
situation, decision, you're like, okay, wow, like that can be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And and kind of, just how I wasn't taught in business.
Mm,
So as I'm scaling and I'm growing, I'm like, huh, what am I doing? How do I do this? Like there's a
mm.
lot of learning learning curve of just also how to be a business owner, which is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Because you've got to set yourself up for success, right? Like you've got to set your foundations
Yeah,
up. Like,
yeah.
and yeah, some days you're just like, I don't know the answer to this, but I need to be able to, oh, like, and like
Hmm.
that's part of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's part of the challenge of being, but there's so much to it. Like, I love that you were talking about what you love about it as well. So it's kind of that double-edged sword
Yeah,
there, really.
it
But
is.
oh my gosh, Katie, it's been so lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. I could keep asking you more and more questions, but I'm like, now that I know your energy levels are like a little bit lower in the afternoon, I'm like, gosh, if I ask her anymore, she's going to be like, stop with questions.
Oh,
Yeah,
I get it. I get it.
it's a Q and A. It's become a Q&A podcast, not a like, but whatever, we've had a good chat. And I've learned a lot. So how do we find out
Good.
more about you? Yeah, where do we find you? How do we find out more about what you're doing from a whole nutrition, dietitian sense?
Yeah, I would say probably go to website would probably be the easiest. So that's katiechapmon.com. My last name is spelled a little bit unique. So if you're seeing it on screen, hopefully you'll put it in the notes. But I'm always
Yeah,
like
totally,
Katie
totally,
Chapman,
totally. Yeah.
Chapmon. But
Yeah, I did have
and
to
so
look
that's
at
probably
it.
the easiest way.
Pardon?
Yes. So that's why I always tell people I go, it's unique, but that's probably the easiest way to just be like, where do I find her? Where do I reach out to her? Like anything like that. Website's probably the easiest.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you. And are you,
Yeah.
am I your last, have you got more meetings this afternoon or are you going to go and do something?
No, I'm gonna go do some things. We have holiday here in the
Yeah,
US tomorrow. So
that's
that's I
right.
was like, I have house guests coming in, so I'm gonna go finish kind of
Yeah, 4th
straightening
of
up before they
July. Oh,
descend.
yeah.
Yes, yes, that's why I say like I was like, oh yeah, we have like this holiday thing happening, and I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm
Oh,
hosting a little bit of stuff, so getting ready for that.
Yeah,
So
well, is it happy? What do you say? Happy Fourth of July? Like, what do you? Is that what you say? Yeah. Well,
yeah,
happy Fourth of
usually
July.
like
'Cause it's
happy
Fourth of
fourth.
July here, so it's like Happy Fourth of July here.
You're like, we're just time traveling forward.
I feel so honored that I'm here. Having a little Happy Fourth of July with you today, so that's cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, no, well, anyway, so thank you so much. And yeah, I loved everything we've talked about. I'll share it
Absolutely.
all and all your information in the notes and have yeah, again, I'm going to say happy 4th of July tomorrow.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And
Thanks,
this was
Katie.
really, really fun.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Yeah, I'm
thank
loving
you.
all the chats. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.